Hello, coaches. This is Fernando from Ignite Global, and let's celebrate International Coaching Week together. It is such an honor to have all of you sharing this space with us, and we have a very important, extremely powerful topic today, a specialized coaching approach to holistic child adolescent development and parenting. Coaching is an evolving profession at the moment, as you are aware. There are many areas of coaching being developed at the moment, and I believe that you are here. The reason being you recognize the importance of bringing coaching mindset to how we cultivate our children, our adolescents, and how we invite the coaching mindset and coaching approach into even the education systems. So we are celebrating International Coaching Week with ICF Bangkok chapter this week, as Ignite Global is based in Thailand. And we were so happy as policymakers were talking, they mentioned how Thailand is incorporating a coaching mindset and training educators and child caregivers coaching mindset. So I think this is such a wonderful beginning of a new era. So I'm very excited that you are joining us. Please note that this session is being recorded. Feel free to turn on your turn on your cameras and show us your smiling faces. So once again, I would like to welcome all of you today. Looking at the guest list, I see professional coaches, medical doctors, therapists, psychologists, educators, parents, and many other professionals joining in. We also had many requests that some of the participants who are unable to join because they are from different time zones for us to record this session and share. So please note, we are recording this session and it will be available publicly to those who would like to access this at a later time. So once again, let's celebrate our profession. I think often when I talk to my mentor, we often have this sharing. What a privilege to be a professional coach, doing the work that we do in a high vibrational space at all times with our clients. And today I am very, very honored and privileged to be with many child adolescent development and parenting experts in this room. Not just one, not just two, not just three, but 7 of them. So I'm gonna quickly introduce them to you. And first, I would like to introduce Lux Hettiadura, who created and act as the ICF lead educator for child adolescent development and parenting program, which is fully accredited by ICF at Ignite Global. And then I also have several coaches, and earlier I asked them for forgiveness because I don't know how to pronounce all their second names. So I'm going to introduce them with the first name, and when they introduce themselves, they will share with you their details. Coaches, professionals who are joining, including our resource speakers today, please feel free to share your introductions and even links to your professional networks so that everyone can get in touch with you. So we have Victoria, who is a child adolescent development and parenting coach. We have Luisa, who is a life and relationship coach. Then we have Patrick, who would like to call himself the expat dad. And then we have Mega, who is child adolescent development and parenting coach as well. And then we have Zahur, child adolescent development and parenting coach. We have Claudia, child adolescent development and parenting coach. Then we have Margarita. So I'm very excited to welcome all of you coaches. Thank you so very much for being here. So I'm excited to hear your stories and enlighten us. Lux, over to you.
Thank you, Fernando. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. Very excited and deeply honored to have all of you here today. So I'm not going to be talking too much because it's about our experts and I would like them to shine and share their experience and expertise. So to begin with, let's invite them to introduce themselves. And we have this little tradition in our community that we popcorn. So how about I begin? I invite Vicky to introduce yourself, and then let's popcorn as usual.
Hi everyone, I'm in Dubai, so it's the afternoon where I am, but good morning, good evening, whatever suits your area. So my name is Victoria McEwen, and I am working and living in Dubai for many, many years now, and other countries in the region as well. I have a background with a master's in psychology and business studies, and I have worked in the corporate world early in my career, but now I have worked in education for about 25 years, more specifically in the area of inclusion. In a large international school in Dubai, I'm managing the inclusion here, and I am beginning, well, it's not beginning, it's getting closer and closer. In 7 weeks' time, I will be leaving that job to coach full time and to basically have my own company, which is going to be known as the Diverse Mind Coach. And my specialist niche is working with individuals, families, and also communities who identify as neurodivergent, and families that have baffling behaviors. And, you know, the children might have a lot of things going on in their lives that the parents are finding challenging and need support with. I work with parents and I work with children, and also other caregivers as well. Popcorn to Louisa.
Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to be here. I'm Luisa Berguano, and I am based in Spain. It's just after 3 p.m. here, and I am a life and relationship coach. I've been a coach for just over 4 years now. I've worked with hundreds of people, and my specialty over the years has developed more into relationship coaching. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I work with a lot of young women who have developed people-pleasing tendencies, and I help them to go from that to self-trust and to living a life of purpose and confidence daily. I will popcorn to Patrick.
Hey. My name is Patrick Cadian, also known as the Expat Dad, sometimes known as the Expat Hypnotherapist, but today I'm the Expat Dad. I've been an expat for about 30 years, starting in agricultural development, disaster relief, and then doing economic development. But for about half of that time, my main gig has been that of Mr. Mom. And I really have had to learn how to develop myself and lean into mental health in order to be able to make sure that my family would be able to adapt and thrive as we moved from place to place. I've moved my 2 kids now to 9 different countries. And I've noticed that there are, and the research shows that there are a lot of expat-specific issues for kids that tend to move from one place to another, and also a lot of issues for men who step into the role of primary parent. So the focus of my work is to help expat parents to be able to show up for their kids in the way that they really want to, regardless of all the madness that might be going around in their lives, and particularly for expat men, hence the expat dad, who also need to be able to overcome some issues that might have to do with gender role conflict. Okay, so let's see, that's me. Let me popcorn over to Claudia.
Claudia, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Claudia Kanja, and I am in Qatar right now. It's 4 p.m. I'm a lifelong educator who likes to inspire the new generation. I like, my main focus is personal growth and empowerment, which I believe it's very important, especially our days, knowing that there are no limits. And I'm actually a physical education teacher who likes to encourage my students and just to overtake their limits, you know, just finding out that nothing can stop them once they know exactly where they want to go. And I'm doing this for 20 plus years. I will popcorn to Margie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Margarita, and most of my fellow coaches call me Margie, and I really like that, to be honest. I come from the corporate world, actually, starting off my career in many various industry sectors, especially shipping. Now, had you told me a year ago, a year and a half ago, that I would be on this path, I would have not believed it. But here I am. I think I originally started this course to understand myself better and my family better. And I think my main expertise would be in raising my 3 kids. And I really find that I have a passion for this because, firstly, as in the words of a famous song by Whitney Houston, I believe that children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. I really believe that what we're doing here is changing the world, and it all starts with the children. Thank you very much.
And let's
Sorry,
popcorn
I want to popcorn to Zaur. I apologize.
Yes, thank you, Margie. So my name is Zaur Bakishli. I'm 36 years old from Baku, Azerbaijan. I am dad of a 5 years old daughter. Her name is Maya. So actually, my journey about coaching started when I wanted to change something in myself, and I believe in the neuroplasticity of human brain, and I believe that we can change. Then I saw when I went deeper that most of the reasons I want to change and lie in my childhood. So I decided that it's better to help people in their early years of their life, which will help them to navigate and to have a fulfilling life. So that's why I chose to be CADP coach, and I believe that even if it will help only my daughter to raise her in a good way, so even this will be enough for me. But of course, as Margie mentioned, I believe that the children are our future, and I want to build emotionally strong, healthy, and intelligent children for our future.
Thank you, Saur, and thank you, coaches, for sharing your journey and why you chose this profession and your stories a little bit. Of course, as we progress with this discussion, you will have more opportunities to share your story. Now, as you know, this specialization and this course is not just any other program, coaches, and I would like to take this opportunity to very briefly share my story a little bit very quickly. The reason why we do this and the intention behind this course. So as you know, according to World Health Organization, about 10 to 20% of our children and adolescents fight mental illness battles very silently, and we have no clue of what they are going through. And I experienced this firsthand when I was an active educator. And if you have heard about it, the 4th cause of death among 15 to 19-year-olds, suicide is the 4th cause of death among 15 to 19-year-olds. So as you can see, this is a huge concern that we must be aware of. They are crying for help in a language that we have no clue of. Now, as an educator, as I said, I have experienced firsthand how much children, adolescents struggle because of our unawareness. Now, best example I can share with you is myself. Now, even though that I may seem confident right now, I feel extremely anxious to even to speak in front of a group of individuals, professionals like you. The reason is, as a child, I struggled with studies so much. I absolutely hated going to school, not because I had any learning difficulties or I was not smart enough to study what they taught in school, but I was also struggling with social anxiety. And unfortunately, the adults around me was not able to recognize it in time. So as a result of suppressing my emotional, psychological, developmental needs, my first attempt to commit suicide was at the age of 16. And this is when I was diagnosed with clinical depression. So as you can imagine, as a young girl, as an adolescent going into her adulthood, it caused tremendous challenges for me to get there. And this is when this was the reason behind why I became so interested in learning about psychology and going into education. So I chose Montessori philosophy, which I believe to be one of the most profound and effective educational methods in the world. And Dr. Maria Montessori, the founder of Montessori philosophy, which goes very well hand in hand with coaching structure. She's my hero, and I wanted to follow that path. However, when I got into education field, I realized there are so many gaps, that we are so blind to what holistic child development is. And this is when I started studying more and researching more. And then, thanks to my brother being a coach for over 18 years, I was exposed to coach, and I saw the impact that he created in people's life and in his life. And this is when I became so curious about coaching and the power of it. So I experienced coaching myself firsthand, and I was amazed by the transformation that it created within me. And then, of course, the next thing was I wanted to use the skill set, learn the skill set myself, and use it in education form, because I'm not a parent myself, but I wanted to see how would this work with children and parents. And then this is when Fernando said, how about we conduct a study and we develop a program, because there is no such a thing in the world at the moment. So this was long time ago, and I was very lucky to be in a position at the time. I was working in one of the top schools in one of the schools in the Middle East, and I was in a position where I was able to work with educators, parents, children, adolescents at the same time. So we started a study which is still ongoing, and before we developed the program, we conducted this study over 4 years, which is still ongoing, as I said, and we realized how much impact that we can create in parenting and child development. So this is the reason this is the reason behind this program. So as you can see, it's not just any other coaching niche. This is the gift to the world, and this is the legacy that we aim to leave behind. So without making it about myself, I want to divert our conversation to our coaches. Now that we are talking about coaching, and you already shared why you chose this profession and your specialty. So coaches, I would like to invite some of you to share what impact has coaching made on you as a professional and as a person? Because we know transformation always begins within before it goes out there. Now, some of you briefly shared what impact it has created in you, but I would love to hear, and I'm sure our audience here would love to hear, how has coaching impacted you as a professional and a person? Patrick?
You know I'll always talk. Okay, Lux. So, kind of like what Zawar had said as well, this idea of developing yourself with an aim of becoming a better parent. As I've been doing my journey in coaching, A lot of what I've had to learn about was about my own self-management and how I show up as a parent with for my children, and also become aware of issues that I was not really aware of already. So that would have been things like that had to do with gender conflict, with this idea of, how that can be a conflict for a man who steps into the role of being a primary parent, and how, if you're not really aware of that, you can become more emotionally restrictive when actually you need to become more, for example, emotionally supportive of your children. So being really aware of that. So myself, as I've developed my skills as a coach and also developed other skills to be able to help people when there are some skill gaps between like what they want to be able to do and what their skills are. As I've learned those things, I've been able to manage myself, I think, better as a parent and as a partner. And I can, yeah, so I think that's enough of me yippity yappiting, and we'll go over on my side over here to Vicky.
So, from my perspective of having been an educator for quite a long time, I have kind of been on the side of viewing parents as clients in terms of I work in a private environment, private school environment. So they're definitely playing clients. And that also, I'm living in an environment where there is a little bit of them and us culture, where different traditional cultures have different relationships with teachers, with educators, that might vary a little bit from my own experience back home. In the UK, teachers and families are fairly close in terms of they communicate with each other on a regular basis. The parents will often see the teachers in the playground or at pickup times. But I think for a lot of the families that I work with here, that's not the background they have come from. And what I found increasingly as I moved further and further into inclusion, I met with more and more families that I felt like I wasn't being able to meet the needs of the parents. And in a lot of situations, it's very much a case of a Maya Angelou quote, which I absolutely love, of when they know better, they do better. The quote's a little bit more than that, but I found that a lot of things that us as educators or professionals in other forms where we're regularly dealing with children the whole time, we understand things in a very different way to parents understand them. Parents often don't have a lot of contact with children outside of their own immediate family, and their understanding is based on that. And I think what I really felt in my current role is that I'm not able to do enough to support parents. So I guess in coming to the coaching course, I was looking for ways to do more to support families. And I think I've learned a lot of things on that journey. One of the main things I think is that it's taught me to be less judgmental about families, and that a lot of parents are going through their own emotional challenges and trying to deal with their children's emotional challenges at the same time. And I think in that situation as well, they feel a lot of old emotions that they maybe haven't tapped into for quite a while coming up. So it's very important as part of the child and parent coaching that you offer huge amounts of compassion to parents and give them that safe space to talk about what they need to talk about. And sometimes that might be sessions where they barely talk about the child and they just talk a lot about themselves, but that's as valuable a part of what I'm doing as a child and parent coach as it is working directly with the child. In fact, I think the more that I do this, the more I can see that actually where you really, really add the value is when you're working with the parent and helping the parent to see things differently or feel differently about themselves. So yeah, it's definitely changed my perspective, and it's become a lot more fulfilling for me to work with families in this more holistic way rather than just as an educator. Thank you.
Anji?
So yeah, I just want to say that for me, as I said in the beginning, it all started out with some things that some issues that came up in the family and some crises that I had to deal with, and it sort of forced me to look at myself and understand why I react in the way I do, or why do I feel certain things the way I do. And it all came back to, in a way, finding myself and who I am and how I show up for my family. And I think with this course, it's really helped me to go deep within and to see certain things, especially from the past. And I now understand like how a lot of things that happen to us as children actually come out in our lives as adults, where we go through certain situations, trauma-based situations as young children that we don't even know that we've experienced. I think it gets embedded in our subconscious, which we carry through into our adult life, and the way we react to certain things, or the way we are as parents and things like that, it comes from what we've been taught, sometimes erroneously, or and I think what I find with this course and helping me to understand who I am, I believe that I can function better as an adult, understanding different attachment styles, how we all attach due to the experiences we've had with our attachments, with our primary caregivers in our youth. That's the way we sort of attach in adults, but we can change certain things. It doesn't mean that things are that we can go through life with what we've grown up with. We can change and learn new positive behaviors, which will help us in our day-to-day as adults.
Thank you, Margie, and thank you everyone who shared. And I think, Margie, you are preparing the grounds for our next question. Earlier, from the very beginning, we have been focusing on children's mental health, emotional well-being, and the concern in the world currently. And when we think about trauma, very often we think about, the war trauma, or when we are physically violated. Yes, that is some sort of trauma. But most of us, we don't realize unknowingly, some of us are born into dysfunctional families and we don't even know. And we are exposed to trauma on a day-to-day basis, like Margie mentioned. For example, our attachment style, how distorted our attachment style can be with our primary caregivers, and how they can manifest in our adult life. This is just only one area. So I actually have two questions, and I would like to divert them to Fernando. As a therapist, and also from your experience as the creator of the trauma-informed coach education specialization. Fernando, I would love to hear from you two questions, so I will wrap in one, so probably you can give us an elaborated answer. Question number one is, how do early childhood experiences shape our emotional and physical development into adulthood? Specifically from a perspective, how might unresolved childhood trauma surface in adult life? If you can provide some examples, that would be very helpful for us to understand.
All right, Lux, thank you. Great question. Now, addressing that, I would like to begin where you and Margie both mentioned about attachment styles. Now, the interesting thing is that if our coaches are not familiar with attachment styles, you might be wondering what that means. Just like what Lux mentioned, right? Like as adults, how we attach ourselves to our romantic partners and even other relationships. Have you ever come across individuals who are extremely anxious in their relationships, or when someone is interested in specific person, this person run away from them. Now, these are some of the attachment styles if we don't go too much into the technical details. Now, when things like this happen to me, like literally yesterday, I was working with a client and she's experiencing this kind of very passive aggressive kind of relationship. I want to be in the relationship, but the moment the partner shows or the potential partner shows some attention, she withdraws from the entire relationship and she cannot understand what is happening to herself. So now answering Lux's question, how do they manifest? Well, they manifest in interesting dynamics, but the interesting thing is that we don't even really recognize that this is originated in our childhood. So as I started going deeper with this specific client, she just mentions to me within her first 6 months of childhood, she grew up alone because parents had to make tough decisions because they had to provide for the family. So then it's so very simple to make that connection between why her specific relationship behavior in her relationships, how they are directly connected to their childhood. And like what Lux also mentioned, usually we think that sexual abuse or parental separation is what qualify for childhood adverse experiences. But the truth is, even not being able to fulfill our basic security needs can be considered as adverse childhood experiences, and they can have a large impact in ourselves. So just to give you a little bit of an understanding, I thought I'll share with you quickly some statistics. So this is from CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, a study that is conducted with 17,000 people in the US. Particularly, this study comes from a neighborhood which is Caucasian and not necessarily from the poverty background. Yet, hear me out. So are you aware? Before that, I want to mention also, so when we say adverse childhood experiences, we refer to it as ACEs. Now, a high score of ACEs, a child who has had adverse childhood experiences, let's say more than 4 experiences in childhood, have a greater percentage, like about 18.4% higher percentage of mental health problems and depressive disorders. And people who have experienced 4 or more ACEs have a significant higher rate of dependencies like smoking, alcoholism and drug abuse. And those with about 4 or more ACEs increased risk of obesity, for example, almost 30%, diabetes and heart disease compared to other people. Now, Lux was talking about herself earlier. So as siblings, Lux and myself as siblings, the CDC study focused on 10 ACEs, 10 adverse childhood experiences. And interestingly, Lux and I have had all of them in different degrees. And hear me out, this very last one, which is the ACE score of 6 or more has the potential of early death nearly 20 years earlier than those with no ACEs. So you can imagine, although we may not be able to recall our childhood adverse experiences, they have huge impact on ourselves. And they are like, I'd like to borrow the word that Lux often uses, which is like invisible wounds or invisible chains. Because we have 2 types of brain, right? One is the cortical brain, the outside, the cerebral brain. And then we have subcortical brain, which is the unconscious or subconscious brain. And how we are being controlled in our day-to-day life, we sometimes don't even know why are we operating in a specific way. We struggle, and this is where we experience guilt, shame. Why am I not able to do that? So we start feeling like we are not good enough, we can't get things together. But if we really go deep down and try to identify where this might be coming, many of us will find out that actually they are related to our childhood. In fact, according to WHO mental health study in 2017, this is before COVID, we found out that 70% of the world population has experienced some type of traumatic experience during their lifetime. Now, this is what we remember, the 70% of the world population, what they remember and what they recall. But we also need to keep in mind when we experience extreme adverse experiences like trauma, we disassociate, and that is a natural coping mechanism that is in our nervous system. And also, apart from that, you're also aware scientifically through epigenetics from generation to generation, trauma can be passed on, which we call ancestral or generational trauma, right? So this 70% doesn't include the forgotten trauma and the trauma that is being passed on through generations. So imagine the actual numbers could be even larger. Now, this brings me to the second question that Luke's asked. So as you may know that I operate in the capacity as a ICF mentor and also supervisor for professional coaches and reflective practitioners. Now, one of the things that I often feel very shaken by is that sometimes while I'm listening to professional coaches or other reflective practitioners conducting their sessions, how blind we are as professional coaches, especially to the trauma responses or symptoms of trauma that are present, so present. Like Luke said earlier, it's like they are screaming out and telling how difficult their life is because of the adverse experiences that they have gone through. But we as professional coaches, when we have been through this mediocre, if not the traditional definition of coaching, when we deliver coaching, we don't have this specific lens or we don't have that specific listening skills to really recognize that our clients are telling us about all their trauma responses, which means that triggers are present in their natural environment, which are connected to their trauma experiences, and they're experiencing trauma responses. And as professional coaches, what we do is we try to push them forward. We try to challenge them, we try to encourage them, provide accountability and strategize things. And you know that this can be counterproductive because people try, but need to keep in mind trauma responses are unconscious. They are not, we cannot consciously know them or consciously control them. So these individuals, our clients, try to develop themselves, but when they keep failing, when they keep going on circles over and over again, they find themselves being very disappointed in themselves, losing confidence. And not only the clients, but also coaches aren't aware or unable to understand why their clients are unable to make that development, right? So just to answer Luke's question directly, I would say, as a professional coach, especially trauma-informed professional coach, we gain new lenses, we gain new hearing abilities when we are trauma-informed. We are able to recognize trauma responses and help our own clients using a coaching approach to interpret trauma and help them to recognize whether it is intense through certain specific clinical screening processes, whether they could work with a professional coach, a trauma-informed professional coach, or whether they need to be referred to a mental health care professional. Now, one of the interesting things happening at Ignite Global at the moment is, believe it or not, about 20% of our coaches who are going through our professional development programs tend to be psychologists with masters in psychology, spiritual psychologists, and even clinical psychologists. I remember initially when coaching was new in the coaching world, often psychologists, therapists looked at coaching with a very curious mindset. Can this really work? What is going on here? But now I see that the tables are turning because as professional coaches, we have this ability to provide non-judgmental space to our clients and create the innate development, tap into themselves and find that greater capacity within them. So even the clinicians, clinical psychologists are turning around and they want to gain the skill set of becoming a professional coach, because then they can combine their clinical practice and use a coaching approach to enabling their clients to find the innate power. So I think it is, we as professional coaches, I think we can be extremely proud of that, because we have found a profession that we are truly creating development, tapping into our clients' greatest potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando, for such an elaborated answer. I see Patrick want to add something. Patrick?
Yeah, the ACE-score study is fantastic. I love that you brought that up. And it's also been used in other parts of the world as well, to be able to compare different populations. So as you know, my population tends to be with expat children. And so there was a large survey done with the same way that this ACE score was done for Kaiser, and it saw surprisingly that expat kids suffer 3 to 4 times the amount of emotional abuse and emotional neglect than showed up in the original ACE study. And there also seems to be some more household dysfunction. And, you know, it's really interesting to see that. And it's also, we suspect that it has to do with the kind of sense of overwhelm that the parents can often feel as they go from one place to another. So again, dropping back to that idea of parents being able to self-manage enough to be able to be there for their children in the way that they'd like to be able to. But the other thing that's really interesting for us as coaches that are working in this area is that there's also the positive childhood experiences that can be protective. And if we know about that, we'd be able to like talk to our clients and say, hey, you know, is your kid feeling like alone in high school? Because that might be a bit of an issue. Do they have some other adult friends that other than the parents to be able to help them along? Do you have family traditions that kind of give them a sense of belonging in the world? So there are a number of different things that we could also, you know, raise awareness for our clients about some things that might be able to be protective factors. Because just as, you know, no parent wants to expose their kids for the most part to any of these adverse childhood experiences. And sometimes these things are outside of parental control. But what's often within parental control is being able to look and like more holistically at the environment of the children and say, well, what kind of protective experiences would I be able to bring to these kids' lives? So, you know, they might have a sense of protection against these unfortunate things that happen to them. Anyway, thank you.
Lux?
Saur, yes.
Yes, I just want to add, because we are speaking about the traumas and childhood experiences, here I want to speak a little bit about my own childhood. So I was born in 1987 in Azerbaijan, and just one after year I was born, the war started with the neighboring country. So we had a war with the neighboring country, and in just 4 years after that, and Azerbaijan at that time was part of the Soviet Union, and 1991 the Soviet Union collapsed. You can imagine there were really big hardships like economic and like very hard times, and no, and then almost country was on the brink of the civil war. So the top priority for the parents was just to create financial stability, and just mere survival was the most important thing for them. And you know, as a child, of course, they helped me. Nobody like blames their parents, but I'm just showing the example that I had. So unfortunately, sometimes parents are not interested in their children's like emotional needs, you know, personal interest, like character traits. And you know, and about what Fernando said, that it's like how to say, passed from generation to generation. And I'm sure that even some parents those days and even nowadays, they are not even like aware about this like childhood experiences and traumas, the impact of these experiences on the future life of their children. And I believe that it's so important to create this awareness among parents to stop this going from generation, because you know, sometimes parents just copy whatever they saw from their parents. So that's why I believe in this case, coaching actually helped me to see the impact of my childhood experiences and just to work on them and to heal them, to address them. But child and adolescent, especially like when the first years of children, so important that, you know, sometimes when you are already adult, you go back and try to fix something from your childhood and, you know, to heal, to address. But if you create from the early years, like a stable family environment, and you apply holistic approach, it would be like much better than like becoming an adult with some traumas and like, you know, bad experiences and going back and trying to fix them, and or creating some new like behavioral change or something like this kind of thing. So that's why I believe it's very important. This childhood experiences so important in the future life, and like behavioral patterns, you know, social skills. So yeah, this is just my opinion.
Thank you, Saur. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And also, now that you mentioned that we go back in time, what happened to me most of the time when I start working with my clients, parenting clients, they come to me to work with their child. But then as we progress through the coaching engagement, they realize, oh, I have a lot of trauma to heal myself. So they actually start going back and they start working on their inner child, and this becomes now this has become my niche, which I didn't choose, but because they realize as they parent their children, they realize they themselves see that some of their behaviors, as you all of you said, it's like parenting. Think about it, it's like being passing the parcel from one generation to another without really opening up what is inside this parcel, what am I passing to my child. So when they come to work with a coach, when they start opening that parcel, they see there is so much that unnecessary stuff. So what happened to them is they go back in time, and as they parent their child, they also start parenting their inner child. And this is the beauty of coaching, and this is why I am so in love with coaching. And although that I am still working through my own trauma, this wants to make me as we all, this makes me want to wake up every morning, because this is the impact that we create. So now that we are moving towards child development, especially from our educators in the room, I would love to hear your idea about what is really holistic child development, and why is it critical for a child's overall growth.
Well, if I may give my sort of insight into this, is I believe that all children are unique. All adults are unique. We all have our own. We're born into this world with our own personalities, and we're beautiful souls. And I think parents need help in recognizing the talents, the you know, the positives of each child, their strengths, their weaknesses, and to be able to bring out the beauty that they have inside of them. And I think with this course and a holistic approach, helping the child to deal with their emotions, helping the child to recognize, you know, where they can improve, what they need to look at, sort of guiding them along the right paths of their interests, what they're interested in, and things like that. I truly believe that, you know, we can help children to find happiness in their lives and to follow the path that the right path for them. Because I think school especially doesn't do very much, in the sense that from what I found from my kids, it's like one size fits all, when most kids are talented in so many other areas, and yet they face a lot of issues in trying to fit in, or trying to sort of discover who they are, because the education system doesn't really cater for diversity. And I think that with a holistic approach to child development, we can really, really dig down deep and bring out the best of each child.
Thank you, Margie. I see Vicky and Claudia both would like to share. Over to you.
So, Margie, you touched on some really important things there. From my perspective, a lot of my understanding and how I approach families and children comes from a background in neuroscience, and this belief that our nervous systems are central to everything that goes on, and not just our nervous systems in terms of our physical nervous system itself, but the way that our body transfers information around it using neurotransmitters. And I think a lot of families have very good intentions. I mean, I think every family has good intentions, but their intentions tend to focus on keeping a child physically safe and meeting their physical needs. And a lot of families will have aspirations for their child around their academic achievements. And I think often a lot of thought isn't given to a child's emotional well-being, and sometimes maybe families don't recognize children as having a lot of autonomy and agency in their own well-being and their own likes and dislikes. And I think for me, I try to communicate with parents in a way which allows them to maybe view their children in a different way and their child's behavior in a different way, trying to be really not judgmental on parents at all. But one of the ideas we have a lot in Western cultures especially is this idea of spoiling our children by spending too much time with them, or picking them up when they're crying, or letting them co-sleep with us. Then we have to train them in these systems and these approaches which experts tell us to do in order to make our child respond to controls and commands and expectations within the society that we have and within the education system, for children not to develop their own curiosity. And I think, you know, those of us who've worked with young children can very much see how when a child first comes into an educational environment, they come in with so much curiosity and so much excitement and so much openness in their hearts. And as they go through the system and certain expectations are placed on them, a lot of that kind of disappears. And I think parents become very caught up in the day-to-day expectations of their children within the education systems. And also parents are often under a lot of pressure themselves, with having very little time. They have huge expectations on them to work long hours and to participate in various other activities with family members or other things outside of the home, and they don't get a lot of quality time with their own children. So one of the things that I really try to spend a lot of time talking to parents about is involve your child in decisions. If you're looking for a child to behave in certain ways, it's not done through trying to exert your control over them. It's done through collaboration and cooperation, and having your child understand that when you're asking them to do things, it's not because you want to take away from them and spoil their fun, but it's because there are things that are expected in terms of like out in the world, things that make our lives a little bit easier if we understand these. And also I think parents themselves can often get very dysregulated, and they rush to get their children to school in the morning, and then they rush when they come home to get dinner and bath times and get the children to bed. And sometimes I think it's very hard to even find those 5 or 10 minutes where we just sit as a calm parent and a calm child, just taking time to enjoy that. And I think also as well, it's not this idea of perfection, but it's like any small amounts of time that you can take to cultivate those kind of positive relationships with your child, where you aren't always directing them the whole time to do something. So thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. As everybody else said before, it's, yeah, we grew up during different times, and our parents were not trained in order to know what's that emotional feelings. Like even these days when I talk to my mom, it's like, why do you say it? What is this? Love yourself. It's like, I don't understand it. It's like, why do I need to love myself? And it's because if I don't take care of myself, I cannot help or support anybody else around me. If I don't have enough energy, then I'm not able just to go and help somebody else. And as a holistic approach in like with the children's our day is like we have to give them chance just to express themselves who they are, but at the same time we need to be able to be next to them and kind of guide them, you know, just to grow beautifully and make sure that they have values, they know their values, you know, like the way we grow a little tree or a little plant where we usually put a little bit of fence, something just to make sure that it goes straight. It's kind of, from my point of view, this is how we have to grow the children, the new generation. Let them behave and express who they are, but at the same time guide them on the right way and show them what they can do, what they can achieve. And time our days, as Vicky said earlier, it's one of our biggest challenge, because all parents, they have 2 jobs and they have very little time for their children. And sometimes they expect the school or the educator to educate them, but they don't realize that there is not much time in the day that we can spend with them in order to be next to them and help them grow how they want it. We have no idea the way they want to grow their own children. So sometimes we just bump into too many ideas might go nowhere.
Thank you, Claudia, and everyone who shared your insights. Very valuable. It makes me think that very often, like what we discussed earlier, what we do parenting is something that we learn from our parents' parenting. So parenting is much more than just providing for the child, then preparing that person for academically or financially successful human being. There is so much more to a human being than just providing and spending a little time with them. And in my opinion, I believe that parenting, child rearing is the most difficult and the most responsible job that we undertake in our life. But think about it, very often we go into it without any prior preparation, or some of us don't even have experience, because if we be really realistic, most of the individuals in the world, they don't really have a purpose why they have the child. It's like another tick box that that we tick in our list. So I'm not saying every parent is like that, but the idea is parenting is much more than just basic surface level providing for their children. So I would like to ask this question, Louisa, next, having so much experience working with so many young individuals, parents, and also working in different countries. What are the key components of holistic parenting, and how do they differ from traditional approaches?
Thank you, Lux. So I think for me, when I look at holistic parenting, I think of intentional and conscious raising of children, and that emphasizes mind, body, and spirit. It looks at it as a whole, whereas traditional parenting focuses a lot more on what Saud mentioned earlier around wanting to provide for the child financially, maybe, or just physically. So if we take into account Maslow's hierarchy of needs, traditional parenting looks a lot at physical safety, financial safety, whereas the holistic approach is looking at actualizing, meeting all of those needs in the hierarchy and being able to provide for the child in terms of mind, body, spirit, being there for them emotionally as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Louisa. Anyone would like to add to that? Great. Now, as we are discussing now, as Louisa said, a child is not just a physical being. There is mind, there is body, there is soul. There are so many different aspects to a human being, and this is what we look at as holistic. So now that we are looking at different aspects of a human development of a human being, I would like us to discuss the emotional intelligence, the importance of emotional intelligence in children's development. Patrick?
So yeah, emotional intelligence is actually at the center of a lot of my work. So I find it to be really, really critical. And what does that mean? That means to be aware of, teaching the children to be aware of what their emotion is, how it shows up, that it exists, where it is in their body, and how to be able to respond to it. This is a part of Lisa growing up that I did not get. So being able to go ahead and teach these kinds of skills to children so they're able to not just be reactive to what their emotions are, but to really be intentional in the way that they react. Now, of course, that's impossible to ask of children when they're small. They're just not, their brain is not developed to be able to do that well enough. So as a parent, we want to be able to really drop into our own emotional intelligence and to be able to, help our kids be able to go through this process of noticing what their emotion is. Being able to notice it exists, notice where it shows up, name it, and decide how to react to it. So if we're able to model that to the children, to be able to speak to them on a level that's empathic as well, to be able to have an understanding of what it is that they're really trying to get across to us, because it's not always very clear. As a part of this that's really important, as what Vicky said before, is this collaborative problem solving as well. So the kids get a really good idea of why this is happening. It's not just that things are being put upon them. Yeah, so I think, this is basically what I think about when it comes to emotional intelligence. That's, I'm Gen X. Maybe you younger folks have learned this growing up more, how to do this, how to be emotionally intelligent. But I certainly had to lean into learning how to do that to be able to help my children learn how to do it. Because frankly, when I grew up, and I was first teaching my son about emotion, I was like, oh, anger is so scary. It's like the Hulk. You want to be able to repress this emotion, because if you don't, it's going to blow up, and you as a man can be really dangerous. So you have to be careful about that. Well, I come to learn by doing some parenting coaching and by learning some different things, that this is really not the way to, suppression is really not what we're looking to be able to do. So if the more we're able to get parents to be more aware of what emotional intelligence is for themselves, how they need to be able to lend their prefrontal cortex to their children as it's developing, to be able to help them emotionally regulate and be able to learn and bring that into their own adulthood, so they're able to do what they value regardless of the kinds of emotions that are coming on. So thank you. And I think I'll let Vicky take over here. She's got her hand up politely.
So thank you, Patrick. I want to address this more specifically from my niche, which is working with neurodivergent individuals and families. It takes into account everything that you were talking about, Patrick, but it also needs to go a little bit of a step further, because often with neurodivergent individuals, as we see with younger children, is they don't have the interoception, the internal awareness to recognize different feelings. And that's not just emotional. Sometimes that affects things like they don't know when they're hungry, or they don't know when they're feeling cold, or when they're feeling pain. This is not all neurodivergent individuals, but in a lot more cases than you would get in a regular population. So often they experience very big emotions in a way which they can't understand, even from a physical perspective. So they might feel a lot more anxiety around those emotions. Like if they started to get a little bit scared or a little bit nervous, or something's a little bit novel and their heart starts beating a bit faster, they might not know how to interpret that so easily. They might not have a lot of language to describe how they're feeling, not because they don't have a wide vocabulary, but again, because of the interoception. And you will often find that they use the same, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling happy, or occasionally you might get an excited. So what I use a lot with these children is a feelings wheel. And there are different versions of it which go into a lot more detail, as the more detailed ones are appropriate to use with adults or older children, but you can start off with less detailed ones that helps children to see, well, sad can be broken down into these different, more detailed responses. And then I work with children, explaining to them, and maybe even sometimes showing them what those feelings might feel like. So, if you're feeling excited, we might do a little bit of running on the spot, and then they might feel like that heat and that face flushing and that little bit of sweating and heart beating from the exercise. And I kind of relate that to other feelings that they might experience. I think also one of the things that we need to be very, very careful as educators working with children as well is that when we talk about emotional intelligence, and I know that this is a term which is thrown around, there's a tendency for positive toxicity, which I think is like when people are continually, it's pushed upon them that they need to reframe things in a positive way, that feeling negative emotions, that maybe not always wanting to be social is kind of undesirable in some ways. Whereas I work very much with parents to and children to show that acceptance of all feelings are welcome. If you come to me angry, if you come to me upset, that's okay. I'm not going to tell you to stop being upset or to stop being angry. I'm going to support you in that moment and sit with you until that feeling goes away, and then maybe we'll explore it a little bit afterwards. And what I tend to do with a lot of families and children is build what is called the window of tolerance of frustration, where the irritations or the feelings of being overwhelmed by things throughout their day is able to be more tolerated, so they don't respond to it in such an overwhelmingly negative way themselves, that then it comes out in behaviors which they're unable to control. And again, I think it's about recognizing children as individuals, as individual people, and knowing that some are going to respond in this way and some are going to respond in that way. And one of the things I really advocate for a lot of the children that I work with is, if they want downtime and they don't want to be social, or they're quite happy with not having a group of friends, that's fine. It's trying to understand that child's individual unique needs and how they need support with their emotions. Like if a child doesn't have a lot of friends and it's bothering them, then obviously that is something you would want to work on. But if they don't have a lot of friends and they're quite comfortable with that, then you would respond to it in a different way, So I think there's definitely generalizations there, but then when you work in specific niches, there's additional layers that you need to consider as well.
Thank you, Vicky. Fernando.
Yes, I thought I'll add something to what Vicky said. It's a very interesting sharing when she said that there's some level of toxicity around emotional intelligence. Even if you just look at the word emotional intelligence, it just directly focuses on emotion. Like if I speak from my perspective, up until I was beginning to learn about psychology, coaching, I didn't really recognize that I am actually many different systems integrated together. Now that we're talking about holistic, what I thought about myself as just this one chunk of person, I didn't really necessarily recognize that I have a brain. So there is emotion, and then there is feelings, and then there is thoughts, and then there is an energetic body to myself. I didn't necessarily recognize. So I think even the word emotional intelligence is a little bit misleading. I think as parents, I think it's really important that we address from a young, we address with our children when they are really at a young stage, to help them recognize that we are actually many different systems which come together, integrated and working together. Providing that awareness enables them to recognize the difference between, right now, I am going through an emotional reaction. This is physiological. This is electromagnetic motion in my body. Now, as that happens in my mind, there's the software part, from the hardware to software, that now I build an emotion. Based on that emotion, now I'm going to create certain thoughts. Based on those thoughts, I'm going to act upon certain ways, different ways. So having, like, as much as we see ourselves integrated, it's also important that we break ourselves down and look at the different systems, multiple layers of complexities that we are, even from the young, even with the young children, because I think it's really very important for them to have this awareness. So I challenge all of us, what word can we use instead of emotional intelligence? Can we talk about it as holistic intelligence, or can we find a better word so that we actually educate our parents, educate educators, and all who are involved with children? Yeah, so I would say that it's so very important that potentially, now that we are talking about emotional intelligence in the children's context, I think it's important that we bring in creativity. And I think all of you are even better. I'm not in a place to talk about child adolescent development, but I would say bringing in stories, acting out things, and helping them to really bring their awareness to psychosomatic connection, and helping them recognize how to regulate not just only your mind, thoughts, and actions, but also how to regulate your body from a very young age. I think the sooner you know, the better we are able to actually regulate. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. What an interesting discussion. It's becoming deeper and deeper. So this is why, coaches, in our specialization that we have introduced, the panoramic parenting vision, because we understand that there are so many blind spots. Parents, as we said earlier, they haven't really learned child development, so they don't know what child development is. And also, most parents, they just look at in isolation with the child and the parent, but we don't realize there are so many other factors influencing parenting. So influenced by Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, we have developed our panoramic parenting vision, which we look into different layers of aspects that influencing parenting. So as we are diving deep into this conversation, I would like to specifically divert this question to Claudia, considering that you work with different age groups and coming from working with international background, different environments. How does exposure to diverse environments contribute to a child's holistic development? And also, the question is open to our other panelists as well.
Thank you, Lux. This is a challenging question, because every child behaves differently. Like, there is no standard just to say this child is accepted, this one is not. From my experience, what I've noticed moving around the world is that most of the time the students, the new students coming to a school, they are easily accepted if they speak the same language. Those of them that they struggle with the country language, like, for example, Qatar here, or it was Spanish in Peru, they have a very hard time in order to be included in the community. And what's the reason? I guess sometimes they misinterpret the culture. They might So, for example, in the Peruvian culture, it's very known that when you have a friend, you'll call it chino, and chino, it means friend. Now, if it's to translate it properly, it means Chinese, a Chinese person. So, of course, as a newcomer to the country, not knowing this or to the culture, then you get upset. It's like, why would you call me Chinese when I don't look like one? But within the Peruvians, it's very, very common. It's like, hey, you know, it's like, how are you? So some of the students, especially if they are not taught or the parents don't know about the culture, they translate it in a total wrong way. However, yes, the school should help in this type of situations and make the transition easier. At the same time, if it's to talk from the child point of view, they love when they move to a new place. For example, when they come from grade 5 to grade 6, they change the teacher. So most of the teachers are new adults for them. They don't know most of us or any of us. And that the entire class, it's quite interesting to see how come the entire class as a group, they test every teacher. And they know those teachers where they can be late, where they cannot be late, when they can misbehave, what's the limit they can push. And they will know exactly when they get consequences or they can just, you know, go away. So, yeah, I can say the exposure to different environments, they teach the children how to react. However, sometimes they learn it the hard way, not always very pleasant. Sometimes they are able to go very smoothly if they learn how to navigate, if their parents learn them how to be more socially, how to behave more socially, you know, like respect people, and know what's the correct answer. Bit like being polite, don't start and argue immediately. And then a very important skill that our days is missing is the communication. I don't think so many people really know what communication means, and they have a feeling that chatting is communication. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Absolutely. And this brings me to my next question now that we are discussing emotional intelligence. We are looking for a new word for new emotional intelligence. And we are discussing holistic child development, looking at diverse backgrounds. I have a question for Luisa as a professional certified coach and also a child development and relationship specialist. I would like us to discuss what makes specialized coaching in child development and parenting different from general parenting advice and general coaching niches.
I think there are two things that come to mind here when I think of specialized coaching when it comes to child development. And the first one is that with specialized coaching, we look at it as there are three different entities involved. So there is the parent, there is the child, and then there's the relationship entity between the parent and child as well. So that's a really important aspect to consider. And I think secondly, it's also very important to consider not just what we're doing, what we can do to work on the development of the child-parent relationship, but it's important to also look at who we are being in that relationship. So coaching the parent and the child in terms of who they are, their being, who they want to be in that relationship in order for the development to thrive as well. So it's not just surface level coaching, it's looking beneath the iceberg.
I like that, looking beneath the iceberg. That's very powerful, Louisa. And this brings me to the next question, which I would like to invite Vicky to share, and also, of course, all the other panelists, please add your insights. How can coaching support parents in understanding and meeting their children's unique developmental needs?
Thank you, Lux. I think it does this in a number of ways. I think in specialized coaching, we go beyond just being curious, and we often share information with families as well. We ask them, is this something you would like to know more information about? And then we can build on their existing knowledge. In terms of unique child development, again, I think it goes back to what we've talked about in a lot of the rest of the discussion today, where each child is not just unique, but each child is an individual personality in themselves. And development doesn't happen on anybody else's time. It happens at the individual person's time. And although there are always milestones and goals that we read about, and a child who's 24 months old should be doing this, a child who's 36 months old should be doing this. For me, I've lived overseas for a long time, and there is huge diversity between cultures as to what is expected. And also, in terms of education, a lot of parents are valuing the academic side of education in terms of their child being able to read or count to 20 in some of the more traditional cultures, but they're overlooking other aspects of their child development. So one of the conversations that I very often have with families is exploring how the parents are seeing their child as a whole, rather than just judging their child based on reaching those developmental goals, reaching those developmental milestones, how quickly they learn to read, how quickly they have learned to count compared to other family members, and this kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of expectations from parents when they come into coaching that the coach is going to tell them all the answers. I think it goes back to sometimes a misunderstanding of what coaching is really about. So obviously, a lot of what I do is reflect back on parents. So how do you see this? So what would be the benefit? So how would this support your child? These kind of questions, when parents are maybe sometimes coming to me and saying they want their child to sleep in their own bed, or they want their child to not have such problems going into school. And, sometimes there's separation anxiety around and this kind of thing, and it's very challenging because every parent wants their child to be the best that they can be. And sometimes there's a lot of emotions around discussing this with parents, and it's not necessarily always negative emotion, but it can be sometimes a lot of understanding, a lot of misunderstanding. So you just need to approach it very gently and carefully with each family, and just kind of read the room and use experiences that are culturally appropriate to discuss with the family.
Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, Lux, if you don't mind me coming in here quickly to share something about specialized coaching. We also see a question coming from Rose T. Regarding sharing info with parents, sponsor, adopted parents or relatives. How is privacy, especially the age range or in adolescence, being respected? It's a great question. So may I invite our child adolescent development specialist to reflect on this question and think about how you would like to address that. In the meantime, I would like to quickly tap into the specialized coach education. Now, since this is International Coaching Week, and I believe our audience is mostly professional coaches, and as Ignite Global, being a specialized coach education provider, I would like to invite you to this little bit of a reflective space, which is, we only have very few minutes, Lux, right? I'm also recognizing that. All right. Okay, so very quickly addressing Lux's question, not from a child development lens, but well, based on what our experts here sharing, how important it is that we actually specialize and understand in depth how to, all the elements that are required. It's not just sitting with the traditional coaching definition of coaching when it comes to specializing in a specific niche. Now, something that I would like to all of us reflect on is that initially when we all came to this space, we actually wanted to help people. We wanted to create value and impact in our clients' lives. And then we go into our coach education programs, and then there we hear you can't lead the client, you can't advise the client, you can't mentor the client. We hear all of that. That is absolutely very important in terms of learning how to become a coach who operates with robust coaching knowledge. It's absolutely important that we don't lead our clients and let them find their own answers, tap into their innate potential. But at the same time, we need to keep in mind that as we specialize, as we become a really good coach, being able to not lead our clients, however, our clients don't have all the answers. For an example, some of the psychological, neurological or neuroscience concepts that were shared here, a mediocre parent wouldn't know those information. So it is also important for us to recognize, being a professional coach, when we specialize, we also could use directive approach while we are maintaining our robust coaching way of delivering coaching. With the right contracting, I think this is also connected somewhat to the Rose's question, right? While we are maintaining this robust approach of traditional definition of coaching, we can play multiple roles. And ICF in any way is not opposed to this. For an example, all our specialized programs have a directive approach. But at the same time, ICF recognizes them. In fact, if you look at team coaching, there is a clear element of a directive approach apart from the robust coaching that we deliver. So I invite our coaches to recognize and reflect that because coaching is a process that is client-driven, it doesn't mean that when we specialize, we are unable to use a directive approach. And creating the right balance and having our clients educated what is being delivered is what is important. So let's not limit our mind just to only focus on client-driven development always. Clients also require some information and helping them to interpret certain things around the challenges that they are facing or their developmental needs. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Fernando. I think that also answers Rose's question, and I'm realizing that we only have 3 minutes left. So I would like to very briefly, to wrap up this conversation, I would like to ask some of our questions to share now that we are discussing about the coaching specialization. How has specializing as a CADP coach helped you expand your professional capabilities, your horizons?
I'll try and talk briefly. So for me, as coming from a background of psychology and then having worked in education and then having moved into inclusive education, it's really, for me, it really feels like I'm bringing everything together. Like all my last 30 years of experience from having left university to now, it's really kind of coming together, and that a lot of what I have done, my experience has guided me towards this and my knowledge, but it has felt kind of like I've got to a point in my career where I'm not able to make as big an impact as I would like. In education, it's very frequent that they try to get you to go up into high levels of management. And I've known from quite early on that my interest really lies with the children and the families, but it was trying to find a way to maintain my impact there and maintain working in my field of interest in the area that I'm passionate about, and doing this coaching has really enabled me to do that, and it's very energizing and very uplifting as a move for me. So yeah, it's positively impacted my own personal life hugely. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Congratulations. That's very happy to hear. Anyone else would like to add? Fernando? Oh, no. Okay. Right. Coaches, we have 1 minute left. So I want to respect your time that you join in time. And I also want to close the session on time as we did, as we promised. So before we say goodbye to call it a session, I would like to hear from our coaches the impact that you are envisioning to create in the world, not just only working with one child at a time, but in the world at large, and any final words that you would like to share with us and with the world.
Oh, well, I'm impolite and I'm just going to talk. So but what I'd say is like, what I'm hoping to do is, this is a relatively small but growing community of expats that has a lot of different stresses that come upon it. And I'm hoping to make a positive impact to help families in general become more sturdy in their time abroad and being able to get what they want from that and be able to interact with their different communities in a way that's fruitful for everyone. And the children are be able to grow up gaining all of the benefit from being exposed to different parts of the world without too much of the drawbacks, making them be more brittle in life. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Claudia?
My final words is like be the role model for the new generation and just help them to choose the right path when they feel lost.
For me, it's
Fantastic.
all about following your heart and helping children to follow theirs. And I'm a firm believer in families. So, yeah, I think being on this journey, I'm really passionate to get more information and to continue on this path of helping others to really just excel in their own families. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Lux, from my side, I'm coming from more like traditional culture, and here I want to like emphasize the role of males in the bringing up and child rearing. So yeah, this is important for me.
And for myself, my vision is to elevate the vibration of the world by helping individuals in their relationships. I really do believe that focusing on having healthier relationships can bring so much more joy to people because relationships are a key part of everyone's life. So that would be my big vision to help individuals in that way. And the other thing I wanted to say is that it was great to be here and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. So thank you very much. Patrick, were you? Yep.
No. I just there was a request for me to unmute, so I unmuted, but now I'm going to mute again.
I asked you to unmute and speak, Patrick. Come on. What do you have for the world?
What I did say, I went on and on and on about what I'm hoping to be able to do within the expat community. Maybe that will spill over, but there is some momentum to have preventative care for the expat kids from different sectors. So I hope to be able to play a part in that, particularly as Salwa said, from this male perspective, that in parenting, who knew that there's like two that are involved? Because a lot of times it's focused on women,
Thank you, Patrick. Vicky, some final words before we say goodbye.
I think for me, I 100% agree with it all being about relationships. It all comes down to relationships. And I don't have great relationships with my own family members, my parents. And that I think is something which is really been a significant impact in my life. I would say negative, but I don't want to necessarily judge it in that way. But it has had a very big impact on how I live my life. So I think by focusing on that relationship between parents and their children, you have the ability to change so much. The generational trauma, which Fernando was talking about, and just the energy, again, that has been mentioned. You know, if we are all more comfortable in our relationships with our families and feel more secure in our own identities, then I think we will function at a slightly nicer, for want of a better word, way with each other as we go about our day-to-day lives. You know, we don't have that protection mode and that defensiveness on so much, and it just becomes a nicer world to live in, one family at a time. So thank you. It was great to be here today.
And as always, it's fun. It's
Patrick?
fun. It's fun. Families are fun. You know, families are, you know, doing the work is fun. Families are fun, you know, and it's an important part, you know, to be able to embrace life, enjoy life, and be able to go forward. So as always, it's fun being with you all. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your sharing your insights, your energy, experience, and knowledge, generously sharing with all of us. Thank you, Fernando, for hosting the event, and to our panelists, special thanks. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, experience, and insights, and also our participants. Thank you for being here. We are able to do this because of you, and so we truly appreciate your energy and your time that being here with us, and your meaningful questions, and participating this event with great purpose. So I would like to say goodbye to all of you, and if you would like to get to know our coaches, please reach out to them, and if you don't have their contacts, please reach out to me. I will be very happy to connect them, these experts. So bye for now. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye everyone.
Margie,
Bye.
did you have something to share?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much for having me and for an amazing session, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, coaches.
Thank you.